A game released yesterday. One that brought back some old feelings of remorse. Knowing what could have been, but never was. It was DDLC Plus, a remake that added new stuff and even remade the visuals on a new engine. All great things, but it didn't fix the hole it made. 3 years ago, the original game released. It was a horror novel disguised as an anime dating sim. It was nice seeing all the members' faces again, but sad knowing the ending. For 3 years, the ending was they all died, never to return, and their world was gone, literally deleted from the files. It started out fun, but then the twist hit so suddenly. It started out as typical dating sim of sorts. Your character joins the literature club after your friend drags you there, and I guess you join out of pity. Then the plot spirals into an emotional tale of depression, sadness, and misery. The game starts to be deleted piece by piece as the leader becomes sentient and tries to fall in love with the player behind the screen, rather than the character you play as. You replay the game without your friend, and it struggles to move on after the leader kills the remaining members in extremely violent manners, and the game glitches after your friend's death. Characters constantly say increasingly disturbing things and eventually die, just as you're about to care for them and try to help them. It's a trap. One I don't wish anyone to fall for. I don't wish anyone to fall into it. Once you're in it, you'll never see the ending. You'll either die or live long enough to see yourself become hated. And I lived, knowing I shouldn't have. I lost everything, but here I am, hollow, only really operating on instinct. It was 2 years into this misery, and I reached out and tried to collaborate. I was hoping to maybe see about making an ending loosely based on the Easter eggs in the files of the game, of which there were plenty disturbing files that came into the game as things were deleted. It would have been its own original game, like a new IP of sorts. Wasn't sure what it'd be called or what it'd be about, but I wanted to expand upon the game, which only ever really just started, and finish it. After some discussion, I was shot down and outcast from every means of communication I could find, I should say. I only ever wanted to help and was personally attacked, manipulated, and told to leave them alone without reason. Even after I complied, I was still thrown aside, unwanted, like a candy wrapper in the trash. Those in Team Salvato hurt me and went out of their way to attack me. At least he did. So needless to say, when they pop up on my feed again after 3 years, I feel like I knew everything they were going to do, everything they were going to say before they even said it. During those years, I knew something was wrong. There's no way a successful game like this would just pop up and immediately die. It makes no logical sense. If I had something that big out of nowhere, I would honestly be making new ones ASAP. So, clearly it was from the top. I looked into it and found nothing except a few rumors and circumstantial evidence I gathered. Apparently there were some news stories of people killing themselves over this game, committing suicide from the terribly horrific visuals this game had. And like I said earlier, you either live or die. And I can only assume this didn't help the man in charge's mood, Daniel Salvato. Then a tweet comes out after a good 2 years of really nothing, silence. He wants to reclaim his happiness and get back to work. The tweet mentions that his next game had been shelved for those years as well, all but confirming my theory. He felt awful for those people, so he stopped. He recovered and got back to work. Then Plus came out. Honestly, pretty easy work considering it's a remake with some added DLC, most likely completed work from the game that was cut, so it was pretty easy to polish up and just charge for. Then somewhere along the line he got a publishing deal, and then the game released on all major consoles as well. Even still, I think something is afoot. See, I didn't have any evidence, but all the stuff I told you came out to be correct, or at least have some truth, well before it was public info. I went on to other places and shared my suspicions to rather lukewarm reception, considering these were just hunches. I can't help but think, though, that the circumstantial evidence adds up. Whatever it was, murders, killings, suicides, whatever, I have no idea. But the next game was put on ice for 2 years. Dan, the man in charge, was in distress of some sort for those years. Not to mention, the game, as successful as it was going to get a sequel or new release considering its popularity. So if there honestly wasn't a reason for any of this, and maybe it was just my imagination, who knows? I'm blind. Because this just makes too much sense. It makes no sense to just make one popular game, leave it to die for 3 years, then remake it. Not to mention alienating a good chunk of the fan base to literally no new content except for plushies and merch. The game is too successful for that. Or maybe I'm just some crazy Alex Jones conspiracy theorist. It's unlikely to me, but I'm missing some pieces. Whatever it was, I have no idea. Just remember, as corny as this sounds, it's just a theory. A game theory. One where we may never connect all of the pieces. And if so, due to whatever reasons, personal, privacy, or otherwise, I'll just leave it be. I'm not going to invade on anyone's personal life. If they had issues they needed to fix, which is most likely the problem here, I understand. I just wish there was more to go off of. Some sign of life, maybe. Anything. Because I had nothing justifying those years of my life until now, as I was healing them all away, and trying to make new memories. I don't expect anyone's pity, and I certainly don't want an apology. But it's no reason to take it out on me or anyone else. I certainly don't mean any bad will towards the team, and I understand they're moving forward now in their own ways. I just can't help but think of what could have been, and never was. And I guess that's really the tragic tale of DDLC and its fated return. I've been wanting to move on for all this time. I know that now. Hell, I even knew it then. I tried to justify those years on my own, tried to justify it with others. They all faded away eventually. Not for a lack of caring, but a lack of commitment. When everyone you loved is dead and gone, you grow older, more cynical. You start to fade too, looking for answers in anything. I hate to think that this terrible game, and the people who made it will hurt others too, now making money off of them. For what little moments I had with those characters, they meant the world to me. But I should have known they would fade as well. I still see their graves. They haunt me, having to bury them in their own backyard. No one else would. But no matter how many times I tried to kill them away, they came back. Violence was never the answer. Peace was never the answer either. They had more suffering, more fatigue to deal with. Hard to think I still kept their bow. But I had to throw it out since it stunk so much. Honestly, it was a bad omen. I know I shouldn't blame anyone for my suffering, but I had nothing else. 3 years does that to a person. So, seeing them reanimated, dancing like dead puppets on golden strings, knowing there wasn't any more life in their eyes, it hurt. I saved their world, just for them to die, and for no one to care. I tried my hardest, but sometimes no good deed goes unpunished. I was outcast, thrown away and left to die for 3 years. There was no justification for those years. The suffering, the sleepless nights, the loneliness, all to finish a project I had barely any motivation for, if any. Then to release it in an unfinished state as a story that had no ending. It was literally Inception, an infinite loop, where a seemingly innocent girl gets constantly attacked, suffers from PTSD-induced nightmares and terrible books. She's still alive, but not really. It was originally a 3-part novel, a fictional trilogy that embodies the hatred of the community and criticized Doki Doki Literature Club for its unfinished story spanning 3 years of silence. It was a spiritual successor to the game and a proper sequel, unofficially. It was supposed to be a horror novel embodying the fear, hate, and anxiety of a seemingly innocent high school graduate who'd never suffered from these feelings or symptoms before. How it was suddenly thrown in on her. How she was trapped in a seemingly endless loop, knowing how to stop it but unable to, unfairly, and how she was blatantly cheated. Cheated of relief and a happy ending, eventually having her go insane, and DDLC would start. As she looked into a mirror that showed her world being deleted in front of her, pieces of her memory being erased in front of her very eyes, she would wake up to start the day as Monica, the main antagonist. The story would not have been won, but she would be broken, fully aware of who she was, not having all the pieces. I called it Cryptid because it seemed most fitting, and released part 1 on my channel, but it was never finished. I don't care to ever finish it, because I'm honestly still haunted by what everyone did to me. I don't forgive them for it, despite my attempts to. I won't get closure, so they won't either. The best thing I can hope for is for them to forget me, and one day, if I'm lucky, maybe I can move on.